right, guys, here we go. Game 1 of our Chinese qualifiers to see who gets that spot at IPL5. This is going to be semifinal number 1, and in the top left, we have our blue Protoss player from the team TyLoo. It is Jim. And down in the lower right, we have our purple Zerg player, a really, really strong Zerg player in Brood War in China as well. Now we switched things over, going for some StarCraft 2 fame as well. It is Dream F91.
All right, so PvZ on Antiga Shipyard, something that we've seen played out quite a bit lately as Zergs and Protoss players kind of alternately like this map for different reasons there.
Right.
You can actually see the group that we partner with laying their logo in on the map
Oh,
as
wait,
well.
are those destructible rocks right there? Those actually are.
Interesting.
Yeah, instead of the neutral supply depots.
Huh. So, of course, they use their versions of the map. You can see the little differences.
Do.
Well, let's keep exploring. Okay, well, it's regular mineral patches in the middle, so nothing out of the ordinary there. Yep. Interesting.
There's, of course, the logo for the company that we are working with, of course, for that. TyLoo.Jim sending his probe into the base of Dream F91. Now, the really interesting thing with these matches will be to see if they kind of follow the same metagame that we see in Korea or that we see from Western players. You know, what will be the big differences between the Chinese scene and the rest of the StarCraft 2 world. I mean, we have seen a lot from Loner, Jihua, there's a couple other notable players as well, and to that extent, they seem to kind of lean towards more the Korean style of playing the game. Understandably, a lot of them do play on the Korean server, so they are, you know, exposed to that style a little bit more often, but we'll see. I mean, this is a purely Chinese StarCraft 2 tournament, so, it looks like you can walk through that, so there may be a bit of a difference there.
All right, so looks like a pylon block going down, though. Nothing too out of the ordinary from Jim. He did decide to go Forge first, though, so waiting on that Nexus a little bit afterwards. He even going to drop down a cannon? Yes, he is.
Whoa, what a weird cannon placement.
Yeah, including that's not
very different.
That's not even like, hey, this is part of your wall. That's really exposed up at the front.
Yeah, all right. Well, speaking of exposed, the second base of F91 is exposed. TyLoo.Jim does scout that right away. And he's going to maybe consider taking advantage of that a little bit. But on a map like Antiga Shipyard, there's not a whole lot that Protoss can do to punish that, you know, hardcore early in the game. So it looks like F91 is just going to have a little bit of inconvenience having his second base that will finish a little bit farther away from his main, but it shouldn't be a big issue.
All right, and he will have enough for that third hatchery here momentarily if he decides to put that down. Now, of course, he is going to make a full wall here with the gateway and the forge and the photon cannon, or not full wall, but this is a tight wall right through here, I should say. There's no gaps in any of the structures or anything like that. So pylon off to the left in the cybernetics core, and he should leave one little gap in between the photon cannon and the cybernetics core, I imagine.
Now, the reason that we don't see a lot of Protoss players, including the cannon, in their wall-off is because it becomes very vulnerable to things like Baneling busts or even like Roach Ling all-ins. You know, if the units can get right up and hit that immediately, then it does become a bit of a problem for Protoss to hold the ramp. So an aggressive Zerg player like F91 could choose to take advantage of that. He is putting down his third hatchery right now, so nothing really out of the ordinary on the hive mind side of things.
That's right.
That's a big gap.
So, wow. It is a pretty big gap, actually. It's 2 units wide there. We'll allow pretty much everything through, though, so we'll see what he wants to go ahead and close that off with. This probe is going to be able to successfully get back home in a second after taking a little bit of damage, and F91 doing a nice thing and just stopping just outside of the range of this. Testing the waters, though, just to see what's going on, and critically does see the Forge researching.
Yeah, that's a very fast +1 on the way for Jim. And just to talk a little bit about Jim, he's been kind of highly ranked in a lot of tournaments in China. He's won a few qualifiers for other bigger events, but he really hasn't had a big win yet. So this is an opportunity for him to get to a big tournament outside of China potentially and really kind of get that first big push in terms of popularity and success in a StarCraft 2 career. Dream, just to kind of, or Dream F91 rather, just to give some kind of details about his past as well, is of course he was a Brood War player. We mentioned that as well. He switched to StarCraft 2 after a WCG 2010. He was also known back in Brood War for winning a lot of events called Liquidbition that Team Liquid won, in which he was undefeated for like the last 5, I believe it was, and he beat players like Straylock and Noni in Brood War. So a lot of history with F91. StarCraft 2 fans may not be quite aware of this guy, or fans that are newer to the scene anyway.
Sure.
Trying to kind of give some info with that.
Now, if you remember yesterday, we had Dream Team Gaming's Someday Now we have Forever. That's the tag
right.
that F91 is sporting here. So some very, I'm going to go ahead and say emo-sounding tags right there. Someday, forever.
Forever, he's like got his hair like covering one eye, and he's,
that's right,
you know, just like really sad all the time. He's like, ugh. Well, that is, I did just kind of describe your average Zerg player, didn't I?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty
I suppose
much.
that does, yeah.
More complaining, I think.
Pretty emo, yeah. I do complain. I'm a Zerg player. It's like, oh, Protoss, I'm so angry.
Well, 4 gates, and with +1 and a robo, this is pretty normal stuff to try and put on some pressure at the beginning of the game. Jim's not even going to try and hide this, though. He's going to drop the pylon down right at the front. He's going to force a reaction out of his opponent, and that is a reaction in terms of a bunch of roaches and 16 zerglings as well. So we'll see if Jim wants to keep going with this.
Yeah, this is a pretty common push these days in Korea. It's really tough, I think, to do actual damage with it, though, and that's kind of what we're seeing here. It was popular for a little while, and I still see it on a fairly regular basis from a lot of the Korean Protoss players, but it just doesn't seem, I can't like remember a time when this push has ever really done significant damage. You know, it causes units to be produced maybe a little bit early, but other than that, the Zelts just kind of run home feeling sad, and that's about it, man. I mean, I'm just not a big fan of the push that Jim just tried. He didn't lose a whole lot, but you know, it just didn't really do what he was looking to do.
Well, he has a couple of options at his disposal now. Due to the fact that he hasn't put down a Twilight Council or another base yet, we may be seeing like a big 3 Immortal push that's been so popular recently.
Yeah, it certainly could
and
be.
Indeed, we have a couple more gateways coming down as well. So it looks like it will be a 6 or 7 gate, 3 Immortal 1-1 push. So I mean that's super common stuff out of Protoss players
really
recently.
Strong too.
Yeah, I mean, and it allows you the ability to inflict economic damage as you take your third as well, which may be what Jim has set out to do.
Now F91 is already breaking through the rocks at the third base of Jim in preparation for maybe deciding to do some sort of counterattack when that third base goes down, if it goes down rather. At the same time, we did have the lair on the way, and now we do have +1 missile attacks and roach speed coming out for our Zerg player. He is currently on 4 gas as well, and getting burrow too. I like the addition of the fairly early burrow. That was something that was oh, he actually just canceled it. So never mind, let's not talk about burrow anymore. Burrow's boring. It doesn't play a role in this game.
It was kind of interesting.
Hydra Den. I just think I saw that in the production queue.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And Jim actually canceled his third Immortal and decided to put up a Warp Prism instead and still move out after that. So kind of an interesting decision out of him, but he will still be able to do damage. And of course, he did full wall off back at home as well with the second Photon Cannon. So he may be meaning to, well, try and end the game right here, it may be his plan.
It's certainly looking like it. I mean, it'd be pretty tough to expand smoothly out of something like this. The Warp Prism, though, I think is a good choice because it just kind of saves you the hassle of having to keep your probe alive, do the pylons and things like that. And you can warp in units at that third base while your army fights here as well. So here we go.
That's right, and you know, there was a pretty good ring with the Zerglings, but the force fields were pretty excellent out of Jim. Initially, the problem is, though, is he's not going to be able to engage those roaches favorably quite yet. Now finally does get in there, though, and he is cleaning up a lot. F91 really has to get something done now, as he just lost an incredible amount of forces.
Yeah, man, he's got Hydras on the way, but it's kind of an awkward time. He really needed to have a little bit more breathing room to get that strong army out. He's not dead yet by any stretch. He's still got a little bit of a supply lead, but a lot of that is going to be in workers, and he's going to be very careful. Going to have to be careful with his army units. Oh, fighting with drones even.
Yeah, no kidding. Pulling quite a few off the line, but they're going to get torn up by those 1-1 zealots sitting there. A few roaches are pulled in to help defend as well, but the Immortals just have not been touched yet. 12 kills on one, 11 on another, and it continues to skyrocket up. Now, finally, Guardian Shield has run out, not been restarted. He did have enough for another Guardian Shield, but decides to run away for the time being, maybe seeing that energy to drop down some force fields as he gets out of there.
Yeah, well, it looks like F91 has barely held this off. I'm curious to see what the worker count is after all that, as we see the robotics bay going down for Jim. It looks like he lost a lot of drones, 46 to 49 probes. You definitely want to be at around 70 at this point as Zerg. Oh, and losing a few more units. Dream F91 over pursuing just a little bit. It looks like he needs to be really careful with this, man. I mean, this is dangerous for a Zerg player to try to do something like this. Although the sentries do have fairly low energy, so this could end up working out okay.
That's right. No more force fields were available there, so they had to duck to the back, but unfortunately F91 wasn't able to get that much damage done. And again, those Immortals continue to rack up the kills, 34 kills between them.
Wow. All right, well.
It was one of the least enthusiastic wows I've ever heard out of you.
Well, it's kind of a dejected wow. It's like, oh man.
You're feeling for him. It's
I feel bad for the Zerg. It's how it is. +2 on the way for Jim as well as Blink. It's going to make that army just that much stronger. And a Spire going down for F91. Interesting decision because he's just not going to have the resources to make a lot of Mutalisks unless he just stops making units right now and just waits completely. He's getting +1 carapace as well, but this is kind of a weird time to switch to Mutas. We'll have to see how well this ends up working out for him.
And looks like we will see a third base here out of Jim, so there it goes. There we are. All right, and that Spire's now about a third of the way finished for F91, who is putting up an evolution chamber right afterwards, starting to reinvest back into those upgrades. No infestation pit down yet to the best of my knowledge, so Hive Tech is certainly still quite a ways off.
Yep. Now, the other use for that Spire is going to be producing Corruptors to take out the Colossi, but as any Zerg can tell you these days, it's going to take more than just Roach Corruptor to take on a full-on, you know, Blink Gateway Colossus army that Protoss can throw at you late game. You really need Infestors in that case, and you want to be trying to move towards Hive Tech. So F91, if he is planning on doing this for Corruptors just to handle the Colossi, maybe kind of painting himself into a corner in that a lot of his gas is going to be used on those Corruptors, which may not be all that effective. So I'm curious to see what we're going to see. I hope it's Mutas.
Yeah, well, he does have that Spire finish up, quite a bit of gas, so there's +1 flyer attacks, and give it time, give it time. There are the Mutas. So 10 of them coming up.
Okay, so if he uses these well, this will be a good way to harass his opponent a little bit, keep his opponent in his base, and then thereby have time to get this 4th up and running, as we see in the production queue, get more drones built as well. And I do like this, just kind of pushing out to the middle of the map, just getting a little bit more vision on everything. So F91 is really doing everything he can right now to salvage this game. He was a bit behind, but he's coming back quite nicely.
And as we can see, Jim is switching over, well, into those Colossi that we've been seeing coming up for the last couple of minutes, but he doesn't have any sort of Templar tech out there quite yet. Not a huge amount of gas banked up either to really support those. And yes, +3 weapons is on the way, and he does have that +1 armor already finished, but still, you know, not double forge, not a lot of anti-air, and these Mutas could do quite a bit of damage.
Yep, he's got the infestation pit on the way to follow this up as well, so just kind of doing the right thing with those Mutas, and that he's going to use them to just keep his opponent a little bit locked down. Ooh, and he could do some damage to that robotics bay if he wanted to. Going instead after the probes. Once they fly away, I think we're going to see him go after some tech. No, just chasing some probes still. All right, at the same time attacking the 3rd. Oh, this is a bold move for F91. Yeah, making a run for it. I think that's a good idea.
That's right, but he has killed quite a few workers back in his opponent's base, evening up the amount of workers that he had to pull off the line before. So economic damage was done. We're looking at 85 workers now to 48 probes. So TyLoo.Jim going to have to reinvest really, really heavily back into his economy.
Yeah, sometimes you need to be a little bit careful doing those types of pushes that F91 is doing. It worked well that time. He was able to get some damage done with the Mutas, but if your Protoss opponent sees that you have a large group of Mutalisks and you're attacking with a Gateway Force, if they beat your Gateway Force, or your Gateway Force, if they beat your ground army soundly, a lot of times they could just go for a counterattack too. So Jim was right on the edge of having that option, but a ton of Mutas being made right now for F91, so he's just going heavy, heavy, heavy into Mutalisk play. And I like Mutalisks, so I'm completely fine with this.
Yeah, he has 25 on the field now, so that is a significant amount. He can pick off structures very quickly if he wants to. It looks like he is just going to run through and start picking off some more probes, forces these stalkers to blink back, gets out of there without taking any losses on these Mutas. Very nicely done.
Yeah, he's being aggressive, but yet being very careful with the Mutalisks as well, and this is exactly how you need to play it in ZVP. You want to get that kind of unstoppable force of Mutalisks. You can get up to like even the 40 range, the 50 range with Mutalisks in some games, and once you get that high, you can even start splitting them up into multiple groups and attacking from different fronts. So with this style, we'll see how much he wants to go into Mutas, but if he does, want to just go for that enormous Mutalisk count, then he's doing a good job so far of making sure that none of them die when he harasses.
And Jim did just finish up his Dark Shrine, so we're going to see some
did.
Warpins, some DTs, and they are making their way in. There they are. So let's go ahead and see what sort of anti-cloaking measures are there. Oh, that's all spine crawlers. No spore crawlers, no overseers.
Oh, there's one, but it's going to be late. The DTs are almost there. He's going to need an overseer there really quickly.
That's right.
And will the DTs notice the spore crawler and target that down?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they do. Yep, of course.
Of course, yep. And it looks like they're going to go right after the hatchery right afterwards. And of course, sitting on +3 attacks, they cleave through buildings so quickly. And this hatchery is doomed. Bye-bye.
Wow.
At the same time, Mutas are starting to swing through, though, into the main of Jim.
Yeah, and they're killing those stalkers really quickly. Jim with just not the numbers he needs to defend his base, and his army is actually moving across the map right now. He may be willing
Oof.
to go for a base trade.
Wow, this game has gotten pretty ridiculous very quickly. Those DTs have done a significant amount of damage. That's a lot of banelings, though, just lying in wait behind the spine crawler wall.
Where are the infestors, though? He really needs some infestors to lock those stalkers in position to make the banelings useful. He doesn't have any. Here we go. Blinky on top of the spine crawlers, but they use their blink right before the banelings come in.
Oh my god, great force fields. They're zoning out so many of the banelings. Oh, unfortunately, they still get through, though. Oh, man, the Colossi have not gone down, however.
You know what, though? There's going to be enough Mutalisks. Jim miscalculating a little bit. He's going to, at the very least, lose these Colossi and the Immortal. He's chasing down some of the Stalkers because that's some of the only anti-air that the Protoss player has left, now picking off the rest of those Colossi. Pretty big supply lead being gained right now for F91, and I'd say he's in prime position to do some damage here.
Well, there are a lot of Blink Stalkers sitting back at home for him, though, and he is going to be able to drive away those Mutas once again. A little bit of damage done there. Didn't have the Blink ready, though, to jump right back on top of them.
Okay, so F91 remaking his base. Jim lost most of his army, but he does have Archons, or the ability to make Archons, because of that Dark Shrine. This would be the time where you may want to consider something like a Templar Archive, sit back, play a little bit more defensive, and try to take a fourth. But on Antiga Shipyard, you know, where do you take that fourth? It's a very difficult spot that Jim has found himself in right now. That Muta's doing more damage.
Just swinging back through once again. Stalkers trying to blink into the main.
They're like, nope. Nope. Now they're going for it.
There we go. All right, so Infestors are finally coming up now for F91. Those his first 4. No, okay, he already has 4 on the field, so that's going to be a total of 8 here in a second. He has not gone over to Hive Tech, though. And it looks like TTs are going to come right back and kill this hatchery just before it comes up.
Yeah, and as the Overseer's like, hey, stop that. But there's nothing he can actually do about it.
I can detect you.
Oh,
I can detect you.
Lives.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, some units coming back now to handle the DTs.
Yeah, that's right.
The drone continues to become a building.
That is what drones love to do.
So, got to be careful.
Yep. And doesn't lose any of the Mutas, is able to clean his DTs, but of course had his face denied once again. Oh my god! Oh my god! The humanity!
That is basically 2/3 of the Mutalisks that F91 have in little parts on the ground right now. He does have a decent army, and honestly, he may not be worrying too much about lowering the Muta supply right now. He's got that late game army that he wants. He's actually still making Mutas, I guess, as well, and making a huge amount of Speedlings. If he can keep the Archon count low, he should do very well against this largely Stalker force.
And looks like those Stalkers are going to start heading through the destructible debris here and killing that very quickly.
Oh, fungal.
Nice job. It hits 2 Fungals real quick and gets those Stalkers all the way through their shields and does delay this attack for at least a couple of seconds. Does it allow him to get into position? F91 is trying to get into position, loses one of the Infestors there, pins more units down with yet another Fungal growth, so very little shields remaining on any of these units.
I feel like F91 just needs to go for it. Where are the Fungals now? And he needs them running in right now. The Banelings connecting with a lot of Stalkers. The Archons go down, and F91 again chasing away Jim from his base, winning yet another battle in this game.
A very big battle as well. I mean, this one was really important for him. So just 2 Zerglings being made in the entire game. That's it on the production tab for both of these guys. But that being said, you know, F91's been very resilient. He had his 4th base denied over and over again. He's getting very low on mining. This is pretty much all the mining he's doing off of his initial 3 bases.
Well, base number 4 is up and running again, so that does help. I'm sure he's going to, well, it doesn't even matter. GG.
There we go.
Jim, realizing that he's out of resources, and Dream F91